Good evening. It is Wednesday, 16th of August, 2023. It's just coming up to 8:30 p.m. UK time. This is part of my journey, episode 35. I can't quite believe I'm saying that. The first show was some time ago, back in March 2021. Let me just turn something down. And it was a show inspired by DJ Double P. He reached out to me and sent me a message from his son, Minimal P, who's one of our 45 kids, saying that thank you to me and Fat Wax 45 for getting him streaming because it had helped his depression. He came on the first show, was really open and honest with John Musto. And then it's sort of gone from there. And I've had some amazing guests be really open, honest about issues they've gone through. And it's helped other people. And I know that firsthand because of people I've spoken to who have then gone on to be on the show, having watched the show and been assisted by it. Today, I've got someone called Rival Self. He's someone who I'd sort of been aware of a little bit through Instagram. I'd seen some of the tape looping stuff he'd done. And then we happened to meet by chance over at the Mr. Bongo hip hop event a little while ago. I was hanging out with Mark James from Soul 45, and then we had a chat. And then I sort of said, hey, maybe we can get you on the show. You know, it'd be quite interesting to talk about some of the stuff you do, because I'm really interested in sampling and scratching and things like that. So yeah, without further ado, here he is. How you doing?
Hello, how you doing? Pleasure to be here.
I'm good, thank you so much. I say it doesn't seem that long ago actually, but it's probably about a month or so, something like that.
What, since we met?
Yeah, met at Bongos. Yeah, it's
It
probably
was
about.
longer than that. I'm
Yeah,
sure it was longer than that. No,
I don't know. Time flies.
time is fluid. Who
It
knows?
could be 4 or 6 weeks, whatever. But like I said, I'd sort of seen and been aware of what you were doing already. And it's only sort of when we met and I sort of put two and two together and sort of worked it out. I love making these little connections and meeting people, creative people, especially at these events, because, if you're at that event, you're obviously involved in the music scene or in the graph scene or in the break dancing scene or something. So it's really cool.
Yeah, that was a great day. So many faces that I hadn't seen for years and
Yeah.
years. It was brilliant. Yeah, it's great.
And I love how music brings people together, in
Yeah,
that sort of environment. It's like something's
absolutely.
happening, something's cool happening, right? I've got to be there, and who knows who's going to be there. That's the beauty of it. But you haven't been on my show before, and so what I do with my guests is I always ask them to start at the beginning, because I'm always intrigued. Having got my daughter is 9 and she's like really into music and DJ, I'm always intrigued to find out how people first got into music. We'll also talk about art as well.
Sure.
But as far as music, what was your sort of first recollection of getting into music? And was it parents, siblings, friends? Who first got you into music?
Well, no, it wasn't my parents in any way. Weirdly, I wasn't didn't grow up in a very musical household whatsoever, and even at school, I hated music, as a lesson. Which back then things were a little bit different. Um, I think the first time I was made aware of music that really sort of interested me was a friend's older brother who happened to have a lot of records in his house. It was quite a strange dysfunctional household, and he was rarely there. I mean, it sort of passed like a shadow, and that'd be it. But me being a kid, and we would sneak into his bedroom and just have a look, see
Right.
what he had, and he had a massive console, built in, two turntables thing. I think he built it himself. It was quite mad, actually.
Okay.
Spray painted thing. It was this, insane thing. And he had quite a few records, and I was like, okay, let's put some on. And I remember there were a lot, but one in particular, Public Enemy, Night of the Living Bassheads. That
Yeah.
just the way it was, just sonically, just an assault. From start to finish, so many samples, just bang, 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 bang. And I was like, what what is this? This is insane. This sort of music,
Yeah.
and I hadn't had any experience of that particularly. I may have got that wrong, but in my head, as you tell yourself stories, that's
That's the start. Yeah.
yeah. So that I started researching that sort of music, and found Schoolie D, Eric B. and Rakim, and I was like, wow, whatever this is, I want in. And then from there, You have to excuse me. I've written notes here because otherwise we've got
No,
no.
no, no. It's absolutely fine.
So, you
It's
know, I'm just going to be doing this and looking down from time to time. So apologies for that.
that's all good. And to be honest, it's a good thing because um, you don't often get asked your history, so it's obviously
No,
nice to go through it and sort of remember things because
no.
you
To
know
be totally honest with you,
since I've been
last
streaming, I'm remembering things, and it's the same for you, I imagine.
yeah. So last night I did everyone in the house. Yeah, I did their head in. I was just lying on the floor with this pad, going right. What do I need to write down? But yeah, so there was that, and then there was I don't know if you remember, you probably do, Deaf 2 on BBC Two, and
Yeah.
behind the beat and all that. And there was just, it wasn't particularly the show; it was the little animated sections in between, which was, I believe, it was Richie Rich and Overlord X, I think,
Okay.
and things like that. I was like, again, like scratching. This is incredible. And I hunted out Overlord X records, and I slowed them down and tried to figure out what DJ Supreme T was doing. That was the beginning. Okay, so that was where I started to go, right. Okay, I want to figure out how the hell they do that. Can I keep going? Because
Yeah,
I
I'm going to interrupt briefly. I love that you're already talking about slowing things down to sort of get it because I don't know if you know, but I'm part of the Slow Mo Monday community where we play 45s to
yeah
33. So it's something that's I've done I've done a few bits in the past, but more recently I'm doing it all the time and even just on every random stream now. But I love that aspect of slowing down music, and especially when we get
yeah
to your tape looping and scratching and all of that, it's just really inspiring and really interesting. But
yeah.
yeah, carry on.
So with the scratching thing, one of the things my dad did for me, I still don't quite know what he does for a living or did for a living.
Right.
That's a whole thing.
Okay.
But he used to bring home, on my request, like bits of hi-fi and especially old record players, and like the Dansonettes and stuff, that, you know, the ones that drop them down and all this sort of stuff. But
Yeah.
one day he brought home a turntable with a cassette deck attached to it, like
Yeah.
a long thing like this. And on the side of it, on the front, it had the volume slider and a balance slider. So I was
Right.
like, okay. So I screwed this horrible thing down and took out one of the speakers. So when you've got a balance slider, you've got like the world's worst crossfade, if you know what I mean. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Just
Yeah. Yeah.
about. Okay.
That's
Right.
cool.
So that was how I started trying tentatively to cut.
Amazing.
I was using my other hand at the time, which I now use. Yeah, so that's how that was my first attempts at scratching, using one of
Well,
those.
that's really interesting because I was chatting to Adam Bell Cut Class last night,
Mm,
and I was telling him that you're coming on the show, and he's been on the show before. And I was telling him about we played on Saturday in Brighton, and Mojex was there, and there was a problem with one of the decks, so we made it sort of mono. So I was telling him this, and he was saying that some old records you could do the balance. So obviously on the left side it would be the beat or something, and then
yeah,
on the
just
right
nuts.
side. So did you experience anything like that when you
Yeah,
were
yeah,
doing the
absolutely. I
balancing?
mean, when I started, I mean, it probably wasn't for a little while because I wasn't sort of digging for things to sample or
Yeah,
going even outside of hip hop at the time, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, even now, like you pick up records, stereo records, from the '60s, mostly, when they sort of discovered this magic of stereo stuff,
yeah,
and they went totally overboard with it. So you're listening to it. If you ever listen to it in headphones, it's just diabolical. It scrambles your brain.
yeah,
But listening to it at home, if you've got a stereo system, you've got the drums over there, and you've got the guitar over there, and some of them are absolutely split, down the middle. So you can
yeah,
just go, right, I'm just sampling the drums, which is something that a lot of people do. I mean, I'm not saying anything that people haven't done before, but it's just,
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
great, and you only get that with records without going down that elitist route. But there we are. But
Yeah,
it's
I guess you wouldn't,
true.
with a CD or whatever, even a repress, you're not going to get that. It's
No,
unlikely that
generally
you're going to.
not.
Yeah,
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 yeah. Cool. Right, so you've got this sort of Frankenstein sort of record deck that you're messing with. So you're using the balancers sort of fader and then sort of cutting at that
yeah,
time.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. But I
And
was,
then are you then using the cassette recorder to sort of record what you're doing as well?
yeah, I did actually. I recorded quite a lot of stuff again because of that guy's brother, we, I mean, you know, I'm not proud of it, but we were kids. I stole a couple of his tapes. I just wanted to
Right.
see what he was doing, and it was really rudiment. You know, it was, you know, you listen to it now and go, what is this? But at the time, it blew my mind because he was doing things like just, uh, and I even remember it, which is mad. I've only just remembered it now. You know, that's quite bizarre. Bring the noise a cappella. You know, when he
Yeah.
just says the first word bass. He was cutting with that, but in again really slowly, and just the sound of the B, like the way it just, you know, it's like a magical thing. It's, you know, that was it. Just that there were a few little bits in my sort of when I was younger that really made me just go, whatever they're doing, I need to be able to do this and understand it. And I
And
think,
how old were you then?
oh, young. I was still at school. I don't know. I should have written that down. That's one of the few things that I haven't written down.
That's all right. It's all right. It's
Dates
all
and
right.
stuff.
So you're still at school. Okay. So somewhere
Yeah,
between what sort of senior school or
yeah.
primary school?
Yeah, I was. Did you say private school?
No, primary
Oh,
school.
oh, primary school.
Yeah.
Secondary school.
Secondary. Okay, cool. So
Not
somewhere
that
between
early, but
el-
yeah, it was
yeah,
early.
11, 12, 13, something like that probably.
That, yeah, around that age,
Yeah.
there was only about, kid you not, there were two, three people in the entire school in all the years that knew anything about hip hop whatsoever, or would even, you know, contemplated listening to it. But you know, I
And
like that.
were you hearing it from anywhere else? Obviously, you've described your friend's brother,
Hip hop,
and
yeah.
then
I
obviously
mean,
the TV show. You know, was it then starting to be a bit more in the not mainstream, but you
to a
know, you
point. I
started to
mean,
pick it
you
up a bit?
like silly things like you'd see like Top of the Pops. There'd be the odd thing, and
Yeah,
whatever the Saturday morning video show was, they played a few more. I was going to say obscure, but they're not. But you know what I mean, more
yeah,
obscure than Top of the Pops videos. They play like She Rockers and stuff, which I was, you know, like this is weird, like weird
yeah,
animated video, which gives you no indication of who the group were, which I really like and I still like, which is why I like. Well, I'll show you the cover for the
yeah,
record. Matt's, you know, I like the unknown, the sort of mystery of picking up a record and going, "What is this?" Because all this
yeah.
stuff didn't exist back then. It just didn't. You had no
Yeah, of
idea.
course it didn't. Yeah, no,
So, you know,
it was like a place like Woolworths, and you know that's where you go to
yeah,
get your
our
records.
price.
And
Our price
yeah,
was unbelievably our price. I picked up some amazing records from our price. I've still got
yeah,
them. That's incredible things. You know,
yeah, yeah. It's
really.
amazing the difference. I mean, obviously, yes, you've got record stores now making a bit of a comeback, but they you've got your HMV, I suppose, which would be the sort of equivalent, but nothing like our price
No,
used
of
to
course
be.
not. No, of course
You know, all the sort of chart records up against the wall and all the rest of it. You know, it was a very different time.
not.
And obviously, you've alluded to sort of art. You know, are you at this stage when you're getting into the music and getting into cutting? Are you also quite artistic? Are you also doing art at
Oh,
school
okay.
and,
So
that?
the overlap with that, I mean, I've always drawn and been illustrated and been into artwork and mainly drawing. I've dabbled with painting and whatever, but yeah, mainly illustration. And that I have to say, that probably came from my dad. He used to do really detailed pen and ink drawings, but for things that he was inventing, like, you know,
Wow.
whatever. Yeah, it's a crazy guy. But yeah, so the way he drew was all cross hatching and really detailed and all this sort of stuff. So looking back, that's definitely, you know, the start of where I get my sort of style from, I suppose. Um,
And was he sort of obviously you described bringing the record deck and sort of basically giving
mm,
it to you and saying do what you want? Was he encouraging you into the art and the drawing at the same time as well, or not
uh,
really?
he was for a little while, and then through, you know, there were a couple of sort of incidents early on at school, and then it was
Right.
a very different relationship. And so, yeah, to a
Okay.
point, and then not at all.
Yeah.
But I've carried it on, and I've always been, you know, an arty person, I suppose. Sort of, I try to be. Well, actually, I have to be creative in some way, otherwise, I get
Yeah.
jittery, you know. And I've just got to do something, whether it's writing, drawing, making music, whatever. I just It's just the way I'm built, I suppose.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I think a lot of the people I speak to are DJs, but they're also artists in other areas. And I get the impression that all of us are constantly being creative because it's just in us, you know.
I think so,
And
yeah.
sometimes I don't know if you get this, but sometimes people say to me, "Oh, you know, do you ever sort of relax and just sort of sit down and like just watch a movie or something?" I mean, I was like, very rarely. You know, I might
Yeah,
watch a film
yeah,
with my wife, um, but this I think comes on to some of the sort of ADHD that issues
yeah,
that we can sort of talk about. I mean, I haven't been diagnosed. I'm sure I've got traits because I've spoken to a lot of people about things and read up on it. But I've got traits, I'm sure.
yeah.
But yeah, maybe let's jump to there actually, as I've sort of brought it up.
Right. And
So tell me your experience about with ADHD.
ADHD, well, I mean, again, I haven't been diagnosed,
Yeah,
right? I've been told off for not being diagnosed.
right.
She's upstairs, probably listening. Just going to say, yeah, I haven't been diagnosed. But I would put everything I own on it being a tick,
Yeah,
like everything on the list. It's like, yep, 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 yeah, and more. Um, so, so yeah, there's that. I mean, it's even in my sort of quiet moments, I'm thinking about what's next.
yeah,
How I can progress with what I'm doing. I'm almost never sort of satisfied with what I'm doing, which is why I keep pushing this tape loop thing that we will get to, and it's just
yeah.
going in and going and going and growing, and just it's you know. So yes, I definitely have something going on there. I've when some of my friends just sort of laugh when I sort of bring it up. Sort of like, I don't think I have. It's just laughter. So yeah, it's yeah. I don't know what to say.
It's an interesting one because I think there are people who have been diagnosed, and they may have a very good reason for getting a diagnosis. Because if you get a diagnosis and say you're employed, then obviously you may be able to get reasonable adjustments. One of the people I was talking to, who's hopefully going to come on the podcast later, was like things like sometimes if you're in a particular office, there's so much going on that it makes it very difficult to focus.
Yeah,
And
I'm
obviously
definitely
you might be able to work at home.
yeah. Well, I mean, sort of strangely, I'm noticing that I'm getting more and more sensitive to noise.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, I know.
I make so much noise; it's insane. Um, but I am, and it throws me massively if I'm thinking, even if I'm saying something like a sentence, and I just want to express something, and there's a noise, I'm gone. And it's not even I've lost my train of thought. It's just scrambled, and it takes me a while to get back to it. So I don't know. Yeah.
But
So
it's interesting that obviously you're talking about noise, but I guess it's the not the wrong type of noise, but it's not the noise or the music you're making or creating, and
no,
so you're not sensitive to what you're doing because you're hyper focused on making the music.
hyper
Uh,
focus is the
yeah,
word. I
yeah,
often forget to eat, go to the toilet, stand up, whatever. If I'm in a project, I'm just spiraling. I'm immersed in what I'm doing, and which is good in some ways because eventually I will finish and go, oh look, yeah, all this is done. But it's unhealthy in some other aspects, obviously. If I'm
but
not,
I guess it's again part of the creative process, isn't it? Because once you're in it and you're in it, if you do stop or do get interrupted or whatever, then obviously you can lose your train of thought or lose the energy. Let's call it that way. I guess it is a sort of energy, isn't it? Sort of
I mean,
moving through a
that
project.
is the prime reason why I write everything down. That's what all
Okay.
this is. It's just nuts. So all my little ideas, any bit of writing, anything, dreams, whatever, it's in there. Um, so yeah, it makes quite an interesting
And
reason.
it's almost as much it's almost as much as there's only so much space in your head for all these ideas, and if you don't get them down, there's a worry that you're going to sort of lose them
That's
or
exactly it.
forget
Yeah,
about them.
that's. I used to years ago. I used to really panic that if I don't write something down, I'm going to forget it, or I'm going to forget this amazing idea unless you know. And I'm a little bit better now. I'm just trying to sort of let go. And if things stick, they stick, and they're meant to stick for a reason. If they
Yeah.
don't, you can worry about these things, or you can just sort of move on, which I think is the healthier option these days. I never used to be like that at all.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, it's I guess it's progress that you're aware of the situation and to an extent control it, or or is it still, or does it still sort of control you? Do you think?
Well, I mean, it depends. It depends what I'm doing. I mean, I could be working, doing something monotonous, and my brain is elsewhere. So I don't know. It's a good thing in some ways. I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. We may come back to that, but let's sort of get back to the story then. So you've got this deck that you're sort of cutting on. Where does it sort of go from there? Does there come a point where you're then getting better equipment, or sort of then getting out there and DJing, or
Okay, so
how did it sort of progress?
so from that point, few years later, I met an older crowd of kids, still kids, but I considered them grown up at the time, and I thought they were cool, I suppose. And they were into hip hop, and they were buying tapes and buying everything new that you know just no one had heard of, but they were going to select independent record shops, and just buying stuff and going, and I was exposed to loads of stuff. And I was just again making notes, taking little dubs of the tapes and all this sort of stuff. And there was one guy who had 1210s and a mixer,
Okay.
and I've never seen him in the flesh before. So that was like, that was
Wow.
like seeing the Turin Shroud for me or something. It was just, it was just unbelievable. I went round his house, and his parents were away, and he had some house party. And these kids, I have to say, I'll never see them again. They weren't very nice human beings at the time.
Right.
At the time, it was quite a toxic environment. But I had a go on the turntables and sort of surprised them, because I could do real basic sort of twiddly stuff on the platter, not so much the fader for obvious reasons.
Sure.
I could do pretty fairly intricate stuff with that hand. So they were like, "Oh my god, whatever." And I cut there for I don't know about half an hour in total throughout the evening, and then had to go home. And then I started saying to my parents, "Look, I'd really like to get these specific turntables." And at the time, pre-internet, pre-eBay, pre-everything, well, not everything. We'd go to I'm trying to think where we got it from, like the back of a newspaper or something, like Friday ads, something like that.
Friday ad,
Yeah. So however it turned out, one Saturday morning I got in the car with my dad, and we went to a farm in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Mad farm. I mean, and when I say farm, I'm being generous. It was just animals and crap everywhere. It was insane.
Right. Okay.
And we went I ended up in some guy's sort of living room / shack, and there was this quite old elderly gentleman in there, and he said, "Right, I'm getting rid of this." And I looked, and I was like, "He's got two brand new 1210s there,
Right?
Two massive, enormous speakers that I would have, I don't know what I was going to do with them, and an amplifier." And I just looked at my dad, and I was like, "That's amazing." And I almost was like in my head, I was like, "What's the point?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I was going to start, disc jockeying out, but it's interfering with what I do here at the farm, which even thinking about it now is just madness. What were you doing at the farm?" But he said, my dad made him an offer, and it was something ludicrous. It was something like £100 for the lot. And he went, "Yeah, right." No, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" So yeah, I got these things home. I still didn't have a mixer, but I didn't care. I was just like, and I didn't have records. That was the other issue. I had nothing. I just had these two.
So whose records were you cutting before? Your dad's?
What
were you cutting before?
I was cutting some of that brothers records.
Oh, okay. So you borrowed those records as well.
I did. I like the way you put that. I did borrow them, and I have given them back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've now got 1210s, massive PA system. Could you fit it in your room, or?
Yeah, no, I could fit it in my room, but there wasn't much space for. I didn't have a lot in there really. Apart from that, but it looked weird in there. Let's put it that way. I didn't have a table, so I had two 1210s on floor, plugged into the amp, which I did have a photo of it. I'm gutted. Like you know, the things that get lost as you move around in life. But I did have
Yeah.
a photo of that, and I was just, you know,
I
tiny
mean, I
little
guess
kid.
I guess the other thing that's probably we might be slightly overlooked, which is probably cool, is the fact that with music and certainly records and gear, if you think that someone else is going to be able to use it, and it's the same with instruments, I guess, to pass it down. So, like
Mm.
you say, you know, a ludicrous offer, but he probably thought, I'm not going to use it. This kid
Yeah,
probably is going to use it.
yeah, yeah.
If I try and charge too much, this kid is going to lose his
Well, I'd like
dream
to
or
hope.
whatever.
I'd like to hope it was that. I mean, it's a nice thought.
But he might
I
have
don't
just
know
been
whether it
bonkers.
was. Yeah, there is that. I mean, that's possible too. But
Yeah,
we'll go with the first one because it sounds nicer.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So that's cool. Okay, so I assume you get a mixer at some point.
I
How
did.
did that come about?
I got Gemini something or other with sort of transformer switches
Okay, yeah,
on the other side of each side of the crossfader, which were pretty cool. Can't remember what it was, but it wasn't expensive in any way
yeah,
whatsoever. It's quite a, you know, your budget sort of thing. And from there, I got an equally budget Vestax thing that was plastic, but I mean very plastic, and it had again two little transformer things either side of the fader, but they were buttons. And I remember one of the older cool guys came around one day and said that's cheating because I was transforming. I was like, yeah, check it out, I can transform now. And he was like, nah, it's cheating. I mean, these days I would go, what are you on about? Because
it doesn't matter.
I'm
Yeah.
just not bothered anymore particularly. But back then it was like, oh yeah, okay, I've got to listen because this guy knows what he's talking about, and I'm glad I did because here I am.
Were they black and yellow punch buttons? Kilo 1977 saying. I'm assuming
Um,
Kilo had a
oh,
similar style of mixer.
it was, oh god, it's sort of, the mixer was like that, and then it had a sort of up bit. I don't know. That's the worst description you're ever going to hear. But
No, I know exactly what you mean. The sort of
yeah,
yeah.
I could find a picture.
That seemed to be how some of the first mixes were, wasn't it? Because some of the first hip hop mixes, well, I
Yeah,
say
the
hip hop,
Gemini one, the Jazzy Jeff.
they were with that sort of
Yeah,
angled
yeah,
bit at the top, wasn't they?
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, the
yeah,
famous one in all the DMCs and the one that Cash Money was using and stuff. You know,
yeah, yeah.
the wooden sides.
So
Yeah,
you got a mixer, you got the decks, a table by this point. You got a table to put it on.
I don't remember. You know,
Are you still on the floor?
I think so. Yeah, I really do. I'm pretty certain I was. I was just scratching on
Yeah,
the floor like a lunatic. But yeah.
amazing.
So this is weird. I don't know. Weird.
It was a
Sounds.
different time. It was a different time.
It was a different time.
So, are you then at this point? Obviously, you talked about showing what you're doing, and the guy saying about the transformer switch being cheating. So are you at this point still getting influenced and seeing DJs doing scratching stuff,
No.
or is it still
So
TV, or where's your influence coming at this
um,
point?
I mean, it was TV at some point. I don't know where this fits in whatsoever, and probably a lot later. There was obviously MTV Raps. A friend of
Yeah,
mine got a satellite dish, and I watched Simpsons for the first time. It's the one
cool.
Mount Splashmore. That was the first Simpsons I ever saw. Um, and one Saturday morning, he was like, "Check this out." MTV Raps, and that obviously, like everyone, it just
Yeah,
made me explode. It was absolutely incredible. I mean, I saw everything. I watched it for quite a few years. I remember seeing Organized Confusion Stress, that video where they're going through the snow,
yeah,
which interestingly, I read somewhere that Pharoah Monch at the time was battling with mental health issues as well, which is why he had no shirt on and was just running around in the snow
right.
screaming.
Yeah,
But yeah, so you know what I mean. It affects everyone, even your sort of heroes, I guess. But
yeah. We
yeah,
might be jumping forward a little bit.
yeah, probably.
Kilo's asking, oh, did you compete?
Did I compete?
Yeah,
I did compete a lot.
yeah,
I've, that did come. That did come a little bit later. Just yeah. So
yeah. Phil, yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. So fill
okay,
the bit, fill the bit from sort of what you've just said until
okay. So
competing.
so from that, I moved out of um, I moved out of my house, my mum's house, fairly. I don't know, about 16 or something, and I moved to a different city. Not far, but far enough. And I moved in with a load of guys, as you do, and it became sort of party hangout spot, and there was turntables and stuff, and that was where I started to practice and practice a lot. Um, and I'd sort of disappear and practice and practice and practice. And I went to first ever hip hop night I went to was run by, again, older um, guys who were very militant, like hardcore, brickcore hip hop. We're talking sort of gunshot era, all that sort of stuff. And before. And first time I saw someone who was reasonably good um, was a guy called Waxer. I don't know if you know, but he does disco scratch and stuff. He's been
Okay.
up there forever. And I watched him cut, and I was like, he was just messing around with LL Cool J, I'm bad, and like transforming it backwards and doing all that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've never seen that. And I was like, that is absolutely incredible. So being who I was back then, I went home and went, right, I'm going to learn that. Not only am I going to learn that, I have to get better than this guy. And unfortunately, in some ways, I did in about 2 weeks, and he hated me for a little while. I mean, it was, he will admit it as well. This isn't me outing him. He's, we're very good friends now, but he did not like me at all. I'm guessing for that, which is quite funny. But I just saw it and went, I've got to get good. I've got to get good. And I went into the traditional, quite unhealthy, I could say a lot of this on this, but sort of battle mentality of hip hop in general. And I went down that route, and I was there for many years, and I competed in everything, and did pretty well, and did a name got a name for myself, a different name, which I'm not even going to say here because there is a reason that I stopped completely, which again I will get to.
Okay.
But I stopped doing everything for about 10 years, way later on. But after all the battles and the DMCs and the Vestex battle, and and I met a load of people, and battled a lot of people and did pretty well out of it. But it's, looking back on it, it's not a healthy time at all. It really wasn't. Especially if you're a very hardcore sort of battle DJ. I mean, I was practicing and practicing, practicing, and I would go to sleep, and you'd look at the ceiling, and you'd be going through the routine in your head, like where the stickers are, where you're going to cue this, whatever. It's just, so yes, Kilo, I did. Yes.
Amazing. A few things out of that. First, I didn't ask. Obviously, you're based over in Brighton Way now. Is that right?
Yeah, Brighton Way. Yeah.
Was this where you were then, or were you somewhere else?
No, I was in Portsmouth for quite a while, and we had a hip hop night there that did really well, and we booked loads and loads of people, and with some other people who were big influence on me. It was the equivalent of Brighton's Knowledge of Self, and we booked the same sort of people. Cool. That was cool. I forgot any questions. Sorry.
Yeah, no. That was the first question. The second question is, obviously, again, we talked about hyperfocus earlier. It sounds like this is obviously, was this the start of sort of hyperfocusing? Because obviously, going into yourself. I mean, a lot of these battles, people practicing for like a year, aren't they? From one to the next.
Sure. I mean, and that's the thing. Like I was practicing for months on end on, like, I don't know, a 6-minute routine, or 3 2-minute routines, because I was like, right, I'm going to beat him, then beat him, then beat him. And all I could think of was like, if it's an elimination thing, every single one of those has to beat whoever I'm up against. So you would spend all this time on your 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I often think of this, and then you perform it on the night, you win or lose. And then for me, anyway, I never do it again, and then forget it.
Yeah.
Madness. That's absolute madness. Like you're spending months of your life on a 2-minute routine. And I might win, and a lot of the times I did pretty well, but even so, it's just like, what are you doing? Just stop it. It's just so competitive, and it's not. I don't think it's good for you in some ways.
No, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I guess in one sense it's it's like sport, isn't it? If you're a sportsman, it's the same thing, isn't it? You're focusing on that race or that particular event or whatever. So I guess it's in the same thing. but yeah, you're right. I mean, unless you go on to become like a massive name, and then are doing these classic
Yeah,
routines from a
yeah,
classic DMC champ final or something like that, like you say,
yeah,
it probably disappears. And even then, I guess you've still got to relearn it all. You know,
yeah.
it's not like you're
There's a,
just going to pick it up straight away.
I mean, there's the odd routine from back then that, the odd juggle here and there that I still dig out from time to time. I still find things that stick it up and go, "What's this?" And then I go, "Oh yeah," and then I'll have a quick go, and then
Hmm.
back it goes. You know what I mean? But it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
part of your history, part of your journey, I suppose.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
there
what
it
it's
is.
called, part of my journey. And the other interesting thing you said is, when you went to sleep, you'd sort of almost look up at the ceiling and see the routine in practice.
Oh God.
There's a scene in The Queen's Gambit, that Netflix show about chess, where it's exactly that. She's lying in bed and she's looking up and she's showing all the moves uh, on
Unbelievably,
the
I have
chessboard.
actually seen that,
Yeah,
which is a surprise to even me. So
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, to be honest, that's not a bad series. I think there's a new
no,
one
no,
coming
no,
out.
no, it's
But
interesting.
again, that's interesting, the visualization of that. And I guess you're lying in bed, probably awake, thinking
Yeah,
this routine because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just in your head and it's just all encompassing, isn't it?
Well, I
Um,
see photos of me back then, and there's one especially. I'm at the Concord 2 in Brighton. It was the
yeah,
Prestige battle, and I'm backstage, and all my friends are backstage, and they're all laughing, having a laugh, and I'm sort of up the stairs, sort of here on my own, just sort of staring into space, and it's just like,
right.
and that was before the last routine of the evening. I was against someone, and I was like, I don't know, it's just I look unwell. I,
Well,
it's
I guess in one sense you probably were a little unwell, aren't you?
yeah,
Because you've just been focusing on one thing.
yeah.
And also, and you mentioned we were going to do this as a 45-day show, and then we were doing the chat, and then you said about mental health, and I was like, let's do it as a mental health show. Um, I guess again, mental health, that must be quite difficult because you are focusing for a year or however long it is on this one routine, and like you say, okay, win or lose, it goes, and
Yeah.
obviously if you do well, it's good. But was it difficult to deal with situations when perhaps you didn't do as well as you expected or didn't get as far in a competition?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds arrogant, but yeah, I lost maybe two one-on-one battles
Okay.
out of
Okay.
everything I did, and there was one time in London that I didn't do so well, and it was at the time this is how I'm telling myself the story went. I don't believe it now, but
Yeah.
I was the order of the people they put on. I was like, that's wrong. Why have you put me sort of second? I think it was, or something like really early on. I was like, that's not going to work. That is not going to work for what I'm going to do. La 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 la. And sure enough, it didn't go down massively well, even though at the time I thought the routine was really good. And I remember vividly coming out of there and being so angry, which is just revolting. I was so angry, and I just sort of walked off and sat on the floor somewhere ludicrous in King's Cross and just sat there like angry as hell. Like, it's horrible. And I think that I was even saying that to a partner today. I was like, being angry like that. I looked up to people like, actually I won't mention them, but there were a couple of very sort of aggressive DJs that I at the time really respected what they did. I was like, yeah, that's the way to do it. That's intimidation, all this sort of stuff. But it's just anger is it's not an edge. It's it doesn't give you an edge. People think it's an edgy thing in hip hop sometimes, but it's not. It's just it becomes poisonous, and
Yeah.
it doesn't it doesn't work. My brain has shifted massively in the sort of the deliberate 10 years I took away from anything to do with music, and I've done a lot of stuff with this, which hopefully makes me a slightly more approachable human being, I guess. I don't know.
And then was it that situation or was it something else that led you to sort of effectively give up music for
No,
such a period of time?
I I used to DJ, and then a little bit later I started to make beats and produce stuff and get weird and experimental with that.
Yeah.
Make the odd DJ track, but they were weird. I mean, they were really odd. and also I was emceeing at the time, and I was trying to combine everything, and doing it live, which was another thing. Like I was actually beat juggling, proper beat juggling, and emceeing at the same time with headphones as a mic, so I got both
Wow.
hands free, which is pretty bonkers. But I did all that, and I did that for a long time. But it was kind of sort of left field. I mean, left field sort of hip hop, sort of, I don't know, sort of Def Jux, Anti-Connie type stuff.
Yeah.
In some ways, that's the closest I can, put to it. But yeah, I just stopped. I got sort of disheartened with it all, and there are a number of reasons. But yeah, I stopped, and then I don't know if this is jumping ahead, but when I got to 40, I met. I mean, I met Natalie upstairs years before this. But when I got to 40, I, for some reason, was driving to work and realized that my life was perfect, oddly enough, like suddenly. And something just sort of went like that. And I had like a full on breakdown, something like I've never experienced in my life. Yeah, absolutely crazy for a year. And that's a shame. Yeah, there's a track on this new album called April 18, which is 2018, and that's about a specific day, which sounds odd for an instrumental hip hop album, but when we get to that, I'll explain.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that particular year, I was very, very unwell, and I was having panic attacks, which I'd never experienced before in my life, and disassociating, which is a crazy thing. If you've ever experienced it, it's absolutely bonkers. You'll know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, I wouldn't wish it on anyone. It's nuts. Fascinating, but it's fascinating what brains can do. But but I would, as terrible as that was, I mean, mostly for my partners, I suppose, for the people that were around me. As terrible as it was, I think you've got to have breakdowns in order to sort of build yourself up again, and that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
But it took a while, and luckily I had some amazing people who were supportive, and I just people messaging me and stuff that some people I hadn't spoken to for years, and they were just like, "Look, this is it's fine. This is it. We knew then." Blah blah blah. And since there is a point to this, I'm sorry, tangents. So since then, I came out of it and looked at life differently, and just sort of went, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to enjoy things, enjoy nature, whatever. And I sort of tentatively started thinking about making music again, but totally different, with a completely new mindset on an outlook on life. I was just like, well, it doesn't matter. Nothing is a competition. I'm going to make it, and I'm going to make music for myself and nothing else. Like that was always the thing. I was like, I'm going to make some music. So I made loads and loads of music, and it got to the point where I was like, this is pretty much an album. And all I was going to do is go, right, cool, I've done that. Just burn a CD, put it on the shelf. And I happened to say that to my friend Matt, DJ Format, who I've known for many, many years. I said, look, I've been making some music. And at the time, I thought it was an absolute mistake, because he just said, I want to hear it. I want to hear it. What have you been doing? What's going on?
Right.
Like? And I was for months. I said, nah, it's just for me. It's whatever. It's whatever. And eventually, I just went, oh, whatever. And I just emailed him a folder, and he didn't reply for ages. And I was like, well, see, that's just for me. And then I went around his house, and he sort of sat me down at the kitchen table when he went, what are you going to do with this? And I was like, I'm just going to put it, it's just for me. It doesn't matter. We had a big sort of quite deep conversation about music and why people do it and all this sort of stuff. And next thing I know, he's contacted Kister, Neil from Soundwave Records, and Matt WhatsApps me a voice note from this guy that I've never met, and it's Neil, and he essentially was like, whatever this is, whoever this is, give me his number, I want to put it out. Like, he was just ranting and raving, and I was I think I was at the range or something in a car park listening to this, going, what? And I sort of showed it to Natalie, and she was just like, oh my god, like this, and that's the start of where everything happened again. So I started a new Instagram, um, and I started going, okay, well, I'm going to start scratching again. I'm going to start making music, and then I discovered, oh, oh yeah, it went from there. But I don't know. Where do you want me to start with that?
Well, I think. Well, I mean, I think first thing is it's amazing that out of what could have been quite a negative situation, that you were able to sort of turn it around and produce something positive. And I think it comes back to quite a lot that we talk about it on the shows and during streams. When we stream, we're sort of, it's almost like therapy a little bit to us, because obviously we're playing music that we love, and the way Twitch works, you can play pretty much whatever you want,
Yeah,
and your
yeah,
friends are there, and then there's the support. So I guess you, having been through that sort of dark period, you had the support of those around you, which must have been amazing. And the
it
fact
was.
that you could come out of it and see life from a different perspective,
Yeah,
and then produce something that, I mean, yeah, I mean
well,
that's
that's
just,
it. I mean,
that's amazing.
I came to the conclusion a little bit later on that, well, the realization, which is a fact, my entire life up until 40 was a complete lie, which is a lot to deal with if you think about it. That's 4 decades of, not being who you actually are, like,
Yeah,
or being that person, but hiding it from the outside world, which is a very difficult thing to get your head around. And like, I think it was when I realized how perfect everything suddenly was, I could sort of, something could sort of relax, and that's when it just goes, right then, here's what's wrong. And I just, it's crazy. Like, I mean, yeah, I've,
and I guess, were you were you able to talk about what was going on at that time, or did it take a period of time before you were able to talk
not
about it?
massively, because I was so confused. I was just, lots of things were happening to me that I'd never experienced before. Like I said, like panic attacks, depression, insomnia. I've never really slept that well until now, which I do. I sleep
Yeah.
very well, which is great. Um, but yeah, things come up like, trauma and all this sort of stuff, and you really think, and you're like, what is going on? And you really dig into these things, which which you have to sometimes in order to grow. And
And I
yeah,
think, obviously, having quite a lot of men, not just men, but we've had a few women, people on the show as well. But is it? Do you think it's now we're in an environment where it is easier in the last few years to talk about what's going on? And is that
yeah,
something that perhaps
possibly. I mean,
10
for all
years
the
ago it wasn't so accepted and you
yeah,
couldn't really talk about it?
I mean, for all the ills of the internet, I think, there's obviously good stuff there as well, and things like this. I mean, it's an easy, yeah. I mean, you're sending someone a message on Instagram or phone or whatever. It's you can sort of be anonymous in some way, in some ways, and you don't have to deal with
Yeah.
sound. You don't have to like go around, and it doesn't have to be a massive thing. It's a lot easier to go, "Are you all right?" Blah blah blah, and
Yeah.
So so that's a good thing. But I genuinely was surprised. I said it before. I was really surprised by the people that reached out and really just kind, and it's great. And I since then, I mean, I was just like, bloody hell. Every time a lot of times I see people struggling and stuff, and I now have first-hand experience of it. I do try to reach out to these people, and there's a lot of people that I've known from my past who I had no idea were struggling. I won't mention names, but you know, and I had no idea they were struggling. And I meet them and I talk to them, and they're like, "Yeah, I go through this as well and that." And my coping mechanism is this, blah blah blah. I have, by the way, this is a list that I have behind my turntables and wherever I'm drawing, of just things. If things get too tough, it's just a list of things that I can do and look at and go, right, this will help. This is proven to help. Like, just stupid things like exercise, just
I
whatever.
was going to say, are you happy to sort of give us some of the things that are on there? Because obviously we talk about mental health and things that people go through, but
Yeah,
equally
yeah,
important
sure. Well, I mean,
is what
like I
people
say,
can.
this yellowing bit of paper, it's yeah. I mean, like, okay, like, so I do a lot of writing. So write, scratch, go get a hug, prioritize things. I've put write on here twice. That was an accident, but that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Read, go to sleep, exercise, run, do nothing. which I found I really struggled with in the past. But you have to do nothing in order to process. You know, you have to
Yeah.
go for a skate. I've been skating a skateboarder since 1986, which is terrifying. Forgive yourself. Do some arting. Do some arting. Do some
Yeah.
arting. Unbelievable. Or just stop. I don't know. That's my list, and
I mean,
it's
that's all good. You know, whether anyone is struggling or not. I mean, those are all good, positive things to do because it, we've all been through different things, but I think we've probably all united been through the trauma of the last few years of the pandemic and what was going on with
oh,
that,
sure.
and I
Yeah,
think we're still probably processing what's gone on. I mean, we were just at the weekend. We were in Brighton. We'd done a little install, and then we went to grab something to eat. And I was chatting to Mojax was down for the weekend, and Coleman, who we did, and we were just talking about how crazy it was that you couldn't really do anything
yeah,
for like a
yeah.
whole year. And we were saying about how it was a really hot summer that first year of
Oh,
the
it's
lockdown,
unbelievable. Yeah, yeah,
and you could basically go out for exercise for like
yeah.
an hour, and that was about it. You couldn't see anyone. You couldn't see
I mean,
anyone outside. And there's the trauma of that. I think is still sort of playing out
I
further
think
down
so.
the line. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, for sure. Especially you know, people that all those poor people in London that were living in sort of high rises and you
Yeah.
literally couldn't do anything. I mean, what that must have done to people's mental health. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, I think that will just continue. That will roll out. I was lucky enough to have a garden. I
Yeah.
built 2 flights of stairs in the garden. I was just on one. I was busier than I've ever been at work. I was just
Yeah.
building things. God knows what. It was nuts. Um, but again, looking back, that was keeping busy because it was scary. I found it
Yeah.
quite scary at the time. And
I
I'm
mean, we're
someone that
sort of
grew up.
almost on
So
a constant watch, isn't it? Thinking, am I, if I go to buy something from the supermarket, am I going to catch something? Am I then inadvertently going to pass it on to someone who might not
yeah,
survive? And this
yes,
is obviously certainly the first year when we didn't have vaccines or anything like that. It's and all of those things you're saying is good to take your mind off what was going on then, but equally now because I
and
think a
also
lot
with
of
this,
us have
I don't
sort of
know whether
fallen back
you.
into the trap of being really, really busy all the time and filling our lives, and the rat
Yeah,
race that we sort of had
yeah.
before the pandemic sort of slowed everything down.
It was really interesting to me how quickly we got used to that way of life,
Yeah,
like, very quickly, which was quite like, whoa, we don't need all this shit. Um,
yeah,
and then equally, when it was like, oh, everything's fine, it amazed me how quickly it was back to normal. Like, it's
yeah,
like, it, you know, and again, what that does to your brain, you get used to a certain way of
yeah.
life, and then that never happened. What I mean, what? It's yeah, bizarre times.
It's going to be, I think for me as well, it's going to be interesting talking to the children, my daughters and I, and so in a few years' time, just seeing what they actually remember of
Yeah,
that time period,
so-
because we'll remember it because we're adults and
mm,
not in detail, but we'll remember what's going on. It'd be interesting to see if the kids have it
yeah, yeah,
further down the line.
yeah.
Um, yeah, sorry, I've taken you a little bit off tangent, but I think all those all those things that you were talking about is good, and it's good that people can have the ability to do something. And I think we're lucky that Twitch came along for us as DJs because we were then able to sort of get on there and then build a community and all the rest of it. And I guess for you, it was good that you could get into the music. Um, and I guess that, well, the drawing as well. Were you doing that all the way through?
Yeah, I think during lockdown, I think I was drawing a lot more. I don't know. I don't remember that 100%. Um, but there was a time when I was very very prolific with drawing, and again that was sort of sort of until I had my breakdown. I was drawing like lots of. I've always drawn sort of screwed up dark stuff because my childhood I grew up in a my mum and dad had a video shop
Right.
before there was ratings. So I just watched
Okay.
the, the most horrific things you've ever seen that were all banned and whatnot. So I was always interested in special effects and monsters and all this. So a lot of the stuff I used to draw, very dark. I very much steer clear of that now, just because there's enough out there. I don't need to draw it. So
Yeah.
you know, that's not to say I won't do it again because who knows. But I've drawn some pretty screwy things in my time. I mean, even even when Matt asked me to do that cover for him, The Devil's Workshop, he asked me
Yeah.
to do it, and his brief for it was a lot darker. And I said, I don't want to do that. And I said, also, that's going to be corny. And he said, oh, yeah, you can do this. And it's called The Devil's Workshop. And I was like, can we just make it subtle? Like,
Yeah.
Just make it subtle. And I pitched him this idea. I collect, when I go to car boots and stuff, I sometimes pick up like old photos or
Yeah.
old books and just weird little things that take my fancy, just interest me in some ways. And I got a load of sort of Victorian pictures of sort of children playing instruments and stuff. And that's
Right.
you want me to show it?
Yeah,
This-
yeah. I was going to say let's show that. So this is DJ Format's its latest album, isn't it? Devil's Workshop. So let me
yeah,
just.
I don't know.
There you go.
So there's that. Right. So I'll show you the original of that, and that's the back. Right. And
Yeah.
all of this is done with pen and ink. So that is the original. And as you can see, it's pretty detailed and bonkers.
I was going to say, what's all the notes on the side? Is that notes that you've written?
Oh, down here.
Yeah.
And down here, yeah, that's my brain. So forget about that. That's literally as I draw. I mean, that's the most. It's so labor intensive the way I do stuff.
Yeah.
I just anything that comes in my head, I just write down the margins because it's just easier than getting a book out.
Yeah, yeah.
This one, not so much. I just went in full pelt and did the back, but without anything really. But yeah, but that I just wanted to make it slightly mysterious rather than just straight up doom, because that would be weird for Matt anyway, I think. So,
yeah, because I guess also for him, it was a step away from what he was doing or what he's known for.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
So I guess you can take a step away, but you can't go too far left field because then
that was the album that he always wanted to make. He told me.
Yeah.
So there we go.
And I guess it's probably the album that he probably was most free making, because it's like, this is exactly what I want to do. This is what I want to put out there.
Yeah.
This is what I want it to look like. This is what I want it to sound like. And also a little bit not, trying to please anyone necessarily. It's just trying to please yourself.
No, he was he was a little bit concerned in some ways, but there's no need to be concerned. He's got his audience is enormous.
Yeah, and it's enormous because he's a quality producer. He's a brilliant DJ as well, and he's a lovely guy. I've met him a couple of times. But it's amazing that he had the freedom to do that. And obviously, I'll talk to him about it next time I see him. And I'm just going to say hi to Ed Bond. He's been on the show before, and came down to my festival, which was great. Cool. So, how have you first known Matt? Interesting. So. How have you known him?
First time I met him was in quite quick succession, actually. I knew of him, and then saw him at a car boot. Many years ago, and I saw him, and I clocked him, and he was going that way, and I went, I'm going that way. So we did. I went this way, like looking for it. This was when I was, obviously digging and stuff. And then sort of, I didn't say hello to him because I didn't know him at all. But I recognised him. He didn't know who I was. But that was the first time I saw him in the flesh. And then the second time he came down to our hip hop night in Portsmouth, and he played there. And I got talking to him, and I was like, "This guy's really nice. This is quite refreshing, like in this sort of environment." Because at the time I was expecting every DJ that walked down the stairs to be like, "Right, let's go," but he wasn't like that, and that was really quite nice. And we talked, and we were friends from there pretty much. And then the thing that really did it is we bumped into each other at the start of another car boot, and he was like, "All right, how you doing?" As he does. "All right, yeah, like this." And he wasn't like, "Oh, I'm looking for records." He was like, "Yeah, let's go. This one's," he was like, "Let's go over here." And, we were digging together, and that was insane for me, because as the whole sort of digging in the crates mentality, and like scraping the the names out of records and all that sort of stuff that people do. Or I'm guilty myself. I have done in the past. I don't really care anymore. But that was really nice. He was very open, and he shared his music and what he was into, and and it's just knowledge, and it was great. And like, there were a couple of things that he didn't know, which I was like, yeah, cool, and it's just nice. And I've known him since then, and we've been really good friends, and it's just great. He's someone that you can just talk to about any old nonsense, like even
Yeah.
like Natalie phoned him up the other day for something completely unrelated, and he started talking about Farrah Sanders and what her opinion was on him and all this. It was just,
Right.
it's just funny. He's a cool guy. But yeah, so
Yeah. No, he's a lovely guy. And he's playing. He's headlining the Soul 45 Soul All Day on Saturday in Southampton at Overdraft. So I'm also playing, which will be good. So yeah, get to hang out.
I'm playing somewhere, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'll be
No,
there.
well, it's a really busy time, isn't it? Festivals,
Yeah.
and it's nice. It's really nice seeing it because all your friends and all your DJ friends are obviously at a festival, or they're playing live, or they're doing this, or they're doing. It's really lovely to see, and it's great, bringing people together for some of the events that we do as well. But it's cool. Right, let's go back to the album a little bit. I'm going to put up the
Mine.
yes,
there we go. Right.
There we go. Now, obviously, you did the artwork for this, so
yeah, I did. So, do you want me
tell
to
us a
talk
little bit about that?
Because that is mad, and that probably you won't even see that, but when you see it in the flesh, it's pretty potty. So, what that came from was we went, myself and Natalie, we got a car boot again, and we always look for records, but we look for weird stuff. And I'd done the album, and I don't know what to do for the cover. I just want it sort of nature, something, whatever. And I started drawing some stuff. So the back of that LP, if you got that, did I send you that? I send you the back.
Is that the back, or that's the front, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the front. I don't think I did send you back, but anyway, the back, that's the inlay. So
yeah, I think you said you were going to show.
Yeah, so the back of it, was like a tree sort of thing. Okay,
yeah,
but a weird sort of tree without any straight lines. And I was like, okay, I want something sort of naturey, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. So initially I was like, cool, that's what that's going to be. And then we stumbled across these things, these massive photos. Right?
Wow.
Really cool things.
Okay.
Right?
Are they on like a board or something?
Yeah. So they are from, what we got here? Brighton and Hove Camera Club, 1967.
Wow.
Right? By a guy called D.R. Joyner here, whoever he is, whoever you are, thank you very much. And like there's another one here, which is proper crazy. These kids.
I was going to say, I can just see some
kids in the distance, right there, right? And then we just saw them and went, I don't even think we said anything. She just picked them up, and that was that. So I'd done a lot of drawings, and I did this. I like collages, and I did this mad collage, and there's sort of me here and various other horrible things that we won't go into. And I did this as well for it, which is similar to the matte thing, but far more detailed.
That's very cool. That's amazing.
Yeah. So I did that, and obviously that tree thing, and then we were like, okay, one Sunday, Natalie decided to go and take a load of photocopies of those big photos.
Right.
Photocopies of all the artwork I've just shown you. And she chopped it up. And I mean, what she did was absolutely incredible. And it's enormous. It's absolutely huge. And that is you can see there's me and whatever. And she's incorporated the trees and all my drawings and God knows what. And it's massive. It's massive and it's amazing. However, when I gave that to Daryl Crumb, he was like, how do I scan that? What do I do with that? It's enormous, which is fine. So I ended up scanning it bit by bit and then sticking it all together and then giving it to him, and he can sort it out, and that's his issue. That's what the cover is. It's enormous. It's a collage that she did. So eventually it comes out and it looks like that in cellophane. Oh God, where are we?
Yeah, the light does it. Wow, that looks amazing though.
But yeah, it's pretty crazy. And that's the back, yeah.
That's
so I did use that. And there'll be an insert for it, and that's what you showed, and that is another collage thing that I did. That's an insert, and it's got a sticker and God knows what.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty.
So obviously, Natalie, 13 Scorpios, is that right?
That's right.
On the yeah. Because again, I'd sort of it was bizarre because again, I'd sort of been following her and checking out some of the lettering and stuff that she'd been done. And obviously we met in Brighton, but it wasn't until afterwards that I sort of clicked again, you know, who it is. And it's great seeing all these artists. We have Double P in the house, who's saying he would love if you did tattoo designs. So it may be.
So many people have asked me that, and it's and I really appreciate it. It's probably something I should have got into, if I'm honest. A lot of people have said it. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm open to things, I suppose.
Yeah, we've got a question from
what I do takes so long, and especially at the moment, time is against me.
Yeah,
best possible way. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, possibly.
Ed's got a question. Is that one with the two children in the wood from Anthony Brown's Hansel and Gretel?
No, it's not. It's just literally someone from Brighton and Hove Camera Club. It's what it says here. 1967. A guy called D.R. Joyner took it, and these are the actual prints. These are the what's it called? Not gelatin bromide. I don't know. I should know. I used to do photography, but these are the actual.
Yeah, they're almost like plate, but they're not.
Yeah.
Plate would have been a lot earlier, wouldn't it?
Incredible things, and picks them up for next to nothing. But no, it's just someone's private photo, so no one's got these at all. I mean, there's a vague possibility that someone's got a plate somewhere, but I doubt it. It's amazing things to have.
Yeah, so, no, and I love again that something that costs pretty much next to nothing at a boot fair has then inspired, and you've created something new from that.
That's my thing. Finding things and broken things, especially like finding beauty in discarded other people's rubbish. It just, I don't know. It affects me in a very deep way.
Definitely. I'm going to say hello to I think a new chatter, Zaylee81. Welcome in, and welcome in Ed Bond and Double P and a few other people who are here. Right. So talking of that and finding art through discarded things, the album, the process you've gone through is sort of tape loops and things like that, isn't it? To sort of record stuff.
Okay.
Part of it.
Yeah. So, well, this album, not so much. Tape loops came a little bit later. I mean, I did this quite a long time ago, but what with record pressing.
Yes, it takes a long time now.
And various other things, and little things like my brain deciding what to do. Has held it up a little bit, but it's not going to age, so I'm all right with that. But this one is just the result of literally hundreds of samples, hundreds and hundreds of samples. Each track is, there's one track in particular which is about consciousness. Sounds, which I kid you not, a stack of records like that I would have used, and that's not including radio interviews. People like Francis Bacon, Aldous Huxley, Kurt Vonnegut, loads of people, just all these weird little sound clips, but every single song is a story, and it has a purpose, and it's very, very, very deep, and there's a lot going on.
And what are you using? What do you use to produce that? Obviously you're sampling, and then are you using software, hardware?
And I am using the most archaic stuff you've ever seen. I'd be surprised if anyone could debate this. This thing is my laptop. Okay, it is broken.
Yeah,
probably. I mean, really broken. The screen is hanging off. This is what I did the album on, and a USB stick, and every sample I had to put into this, which is a loop pedal, take it out, put it onto a USB stick, then put it onto a separate hard drive, because that laptop doesn't have any memory whatsoever. Like this iPhone has probably got about 30, 40 times.
Right.
But the reason why I haven't changed it is because I just cannot get my head around learning new equipment. I know that inside out. I mean, any day now that could break, and that terrifies me. But I know it inside out. I just haven't got the time to relearn everything. But
So hold on.
what,
What are you using on? So obviously you're sampling into the loop pedal
yeah,
and then
take
record
it out of there.
onto your laptop,
No, onto
onto
a
your
onto a a USB stick,
right
because and then I have to take that, put it into that laptop,
laptop.
um, take that out, then plug the external hard drive in, which has all the samples on, and get it onto the hard drive so that it frees up enough space to actually start making music. It's
But
insane.
what are you then using on the laptop?
A very old version of something called Acid that
Okay,
someone,
yeah, that's
that
it.
someone
Okay,
gave me. And then from there,
okay.
once I've made the track as well as I want it to be, I take it out and start running it through effects pedals and a chaos pad if I need to, and just add in little bits and bobs and scratches and whatever. It's a very, very labor intensive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, if it works and it's it's a process works, it's
yeah,
worked for you, you've
yeah.
got an album out of it. Um, that
It's
is sort of
it's what I've always made my music on.
yeah.
Everything I've ever done in my life, and I've done a lot, is on that thing, which is,
And it probably sounds the way it does because of that process.
yeah. I think it sounds it. Well, it definitely sounds as intricate as it does because of that, because of the
Yeah.
amount of time and things that I've had to do to get it. I mean, there's no a drum loop or a loop. There's
Yeah.
so many layers to it. It's insane, and it constantly changes. And
And I
yeah,
guess the other thing about that is it's going to sound different because no disrespect to anyone making music, but these days anyone on a phone can make a beat or
yeah.
whatever, for free. That you don't really need anything or put
Which
together
in
some
some
loops.
ways I'm sort of jealous of, but I can't do it. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, but then you may not have been as experimental or produced such an interesting album
Definitely
if you
not. No,
had just been making it on your phone or just been making it on a fancy MacBook or whatever,
definitely not.
using
I think with all
whatever.
art, no matter what you're doing, limitations breed creativity. You have to think, how can if you have nothing, how can I make this? How can I
Yeah,
do this? And I think that stems from my interest in special effects when I was a kid.
yeah,
It's like, right, how do I make this? And how do I make this happen, this illusion happen on
yeah.
screen? What do I need to do? I haven't got much. How can I make this happen? And you have to really think about it. And I really like that creative process. And yeah, I don't know.
Definitely. And
I
it's
think I would make my more. Sorry, I think my
no, go
music would be not as interesting if I had all the equipment or the money or access to all the equipment in the world. I just don't think it would
yeah.
get.
There's that phrase in there, all the gear, no idea. You might have
Yeah,
all this amazing software and hardware, but not know how to do anything with it. And it's a little bit like what we've had to do with sort of getting onto streaming, because obviously a few years ago, none of us were streaming, none of
mm.
us were broadcasting, and we've all had
This
to
is my
learn.
first. I was
Yeah,
terrified.
well,
Like,
exactly, and to be
thank
honest, this is relatively simple. I've sent you a link, and you're able to watch it. What we have to do is sort of OBS and set up.
Oh God, no.
Audio and video set. We've had a long learning curve, but again, it's sort of for me, it's been because I do quite a lot of visuals. It's sort of learning the limitations of what that software can do and what I can get away with on my computer running whatever. But it's made me come up with ideas that I wouldn't necessarily have come up with if I had just a
Yeah,
like
yeah,
top
yeah.
of the range whatever. So again, I love that creative element and the fact that
Mm.
you're innovating and using something different to create something
Yeah,
different.
yeah,
And like you say, timeless. I think
yeah.
that's the key. That album is going to sound as fresh
That's,
now as it probably will do in 20 years time
I
or
mean, I
10
don't
years
want to
ago,
use
whatever.
that word
It's
because I don't like picking myself up. But
and
yeah, a couple
it's
of people
difficult for
actually
you
said,
because obviously it's your thing and it's your
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
But I think if you create something that isn't of this particular type, that isn't okay. This is 2023. This is the sound of 2023. It will surpass all of that and sort of be there. And it's like what we were saying earlier about DJ Format's new album. Again, that will be around for years,
yeah,
and it will be something that will be stand out.
yeah. And
Um,
his was quite personal as well. I mean, this is
yeah,
I mean, it's quite a difficult thing to explain as an instrumental hip hop album, which it is, but it's also got so much going on that it's difficult to describe as purely instrumental, because it's every track is so much, you know exactly what's going on, and it's I don't know. It's
Yeah,
hard to say.
definitely. I'm looking forward to that, and I think it's out in a few weeks' time, end of this month. Is
Yeah,
that
it is.
still the
Yeah.
plan?
Just got a few more things to iron out with Kista.
Yeah.
He's got a few things to do. We've got we've got like 30 limited things that I need to finish, something pretty cool to put in.
Okay.
And some other
Yeah.
things. But
It'll get there when it'll get there when it gets there.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Right, like I said, the first sort of thing that I sort of first saw you doing was the tape loop stuff. So let us maybe play one of these, and then obviously you can talk a little bit about your process. Let's try.
What? You know what? I forgot I did that. Why did I do that?
That's good though. It's cool. Right, okay. So first of all, 1210 on the left.
No, they are
something
these
else?
Pioneer things. I always forget what they're called.
Oh yeah. We had this conversation. They're not
Pioneer PLX 1000s. I have to say they are incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is my personal opinion. I think they're absolutely amazing. They weigh a ton, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
But they're essentially exactly the same as Technics, but I think built a lot better. And they've got minus a million, plus a million. You know, it's just they're brilliant.
Yeah.
And the torque on them is incredible. Yeah, they're great. They're really.
It's amazing what is available now, isn't it? I mean,
Definitely.
I sent you a picture of what I've got, which is a Reloop
Yeah.
RP8000s,
Mad thing.
and they've just brought out the new Pioneer, which people have been reviewing, which is the PLX CR55, and that's like a cross between. Basically, I think it's basically what you've got, but they've added on the ability to use it digitally as well for DVS and all the rest of it. Shoestring Sound knows his music, and he said that sounds like something off a Mowax compilation. So that's good praise. That is good praise. Okay, so we got the Pioneer on the deck. What's the mixer in the middle?
The mixer in the middle is Vestax 08. It says digital, which I never knew what that means, because it's just, I don't know. Vestax 08 digital. It's basically a fancier 07. Really,
cool. And then obviously, probably the star of the show, the tape deck.
Right. So
what is that on the right that you've got?
That video sort of started sort of halfway through, but that's inconsequential. What it is a.
Oh, we can play it again. Yeah.
It's a 4-track, a cassette 4-track.
Okay. Yeah. Let me just solo you out, and we can have a quick look at that.
Yeah. So it's one of them, and that was just plonked on top of the other turntable that's there.
Yeah.
Because I haven't got a lot of room, and that's all right. Now in that 4-track are these monsters. These loop cassettes. Hang on, I need to put something white behind it, I think. Right.
Yeah, because I saw that in one of the videos, and I saw in one of the videos, which is a slightly longer cut and paste one, that you were changing over the cassette during the routine.
So let's dig it out. So with these, we're going to try and keep this in order, because this is going to be a routine. So notes, post-it notes, and God knows what. So this one is slightly, slightly longer. So you see it sort of goes round in a weird sort of way. That is about 7 seconds of loop there. The other one was like 4.
Right. And is that so? Tell me about the process. Have you bought that in that way, or have you made it?
No, I was making them. I was sort of exploring tape loops and stuff, and I've always been interested in cassettes, and I used to make pause tapes like everyone, or
Yeah,
well, I
yeah,
say everyone, but hip hop DJs
yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff. And I did. I don't know if you remember that Babu Suckers track that was just literally just the word suckers from a million
Yeah.
records. It was on Bond DJ or whatever. There was this track, and it was just a pause tape. It was nuts. So many years ago, I did an entire side of a tape like that, which says a lot about me.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely mad. And I probably still have it somewhere, and it won't be very good, but it's just madness. But I've always been interested in cassettes, and I remember being fascinated with my dad when people would return videos from the rental shop, and if the tape was sort of screwed up or it snapped or something, he'd pull it apart and get it on the little splicer machine, cut the crap out and stick it together, and then put it back on the shelf, even if it had like a couple of seconds missing. You know what I mean? And he'd rent it again.
Brilliant.
But
Brilliant.
that process, it was like, wow, what you're doing. The fact that you can tangibly manipulate audio or visual in that case,
Yeah.
that has always massively interested me. And there's tiny little intricate bits. It's really fiddly, and my hands aren't exactly small, so it's a pain in the ass.
Because
But
even the screws they're tiny,
oh
aren't they?
yeah,
On
yeah,
the
yeah,
cassettes?
it's
They're
mad.
really
What
tiny.
you're dealing with, this nightmare. Well, it's horrible. Um, it's a difficult thing to do, and there really is no reason for it, but I do it anyway. Because I've got a loop pedal. I can just go looped, but it doesn't work for me like that. So I only got into this fairly recently. So obviously a 4-track, you have 4 channels essentially, and if you have a loop, like a 7-second loop, you can like put a sound here, right? Then record again, stick another sound there, and you can build it up. So I started doing soundscapes and sort of ambient or drone type stuff. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I started doing like chords. I was like, okay, that's that chord, second chord, and you can build up. You can almost play it in some ways. Then the next thing I was like, how do I get a drum to loop on something like that? That's where my brain started exploding and just going, right, there must be a way of doing this. And there is, but I wouldn't recommend it to anyone if you want any kind of sleep or sanity. But I've sort of, I say nailed it, but a lot of it comes down to chance and trial and error,
Yeah.
which again is something that I really enjoy about this. I like not quite knowing what you're going to get. Even if you think you're recording, a certain loop, you press record at a certain time. Even if you think you're recording it and it's going to sound how you think it's going to sound, it probably isn't. It'll be something completely unexpected, but I really love that. And I've got some, really cool things out of it. But I have sort of figured out how to do drums, and that involves watching the tape go around, and the little bit of tape, you sort of count and you figure out what tempo
Right.
that is, and then somehow try and drop it in. It's mad. It takes many, many attempts to get it anywhere near right, but I've got quite a few of them now, and I've got
And
a little.
just
Sorry.
explain. So obviously you've got the 4-track. So are you recording onto the tape, or are you
Yeah.
recording off the tape? So you're recording
No,
onto the
no.
tape. So
I'm recording it.
you're sampling
These start
something.
out blank. These start out blank.
They're
They're
blank
just
tape. So
yeah,
you are recording from a record through your
yeah,
mixer into that, and you've got channel 1 effectively, which is first track. You record something onto the tape, and then obviously 2, 3, 4, and the way the
yeah,
tape works, and
yeah,
then obviously you can separate it out.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's other ones on my Instagram or whatever where you can see that I'm dropping the channels out. So one's got a beat on it, and the other one's got a sound, and the other one's got like a guitar or something or a sample. But obviously, it being taped, sometimes it slips slightly, and it sort of makes mad noises and stuff. And
Yeah.
when you add like the chaos
Delay.
patch as well,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there's so much you can do with it. And I really, you've got a speed dial on these things. You can speed up slightly and slow down, and it's cool to sort of warble it. And if you're really careful, you can do stuff with the paws. You know,
Yeah, I saw you doing that on one of that.
yeah.
Let's have a look at another one. I think it may be. Oh, there you go. I think it may be because I'd put them on before, and that's why I didn't start right. Let's have a
But yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's that.
that's
So yeah,
and
I'm not
it
I'm
must
not
be a lot
trying.
of fun as well.
Yeah, it is. It's the most immersive thing that I've ever sort of explored and come up with in some ways. The other thing I was thinking, like, oh, okay, the extent of the loop on that is you can either do it this way and it's like 4 and a bit seconds, or you can do it the other way and it's 7 and a bit seconds. And I was like, oh, there's got to be another way. How can I make that longer? And what I did was this, and this is where it gets mad. So that is the bottom of a cassette cut off with a multi-tool,
Right.
and I've obviously made it longer than 7 seconds there. I don't know, that must be about 20. And I've started off doing things like that. Okay, putting it around a bottle, and
Yeah.
that is in the 4 track. So it just about rotates around that, and that, if you can get a drum loop to loop on that, you're an absolute genius. This is what I use for mad soundscapes and longer things.
Yeah.
Uh, but these are fascinating. These are incredible. I love doing these. But doing this, trying to do this live, I mean, I need to figure that out because what are you going to do?
I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. I don't know if you've seen it's a DJ Food,
Yeah,
and I forget the other guy
yeah,
who's got like this sort of Frankenstein
yeah,
deck
yeah.
where there's 4 tone arms and each is playing like a slightly
That's
different
it.
thing. And again, I guess in a similar way, he's sort of fading up and down the different
Yeah,
tracks. So
that's it. Yeah, yeah,
it's pretty much what you're doing.
yeah.
Um,
He's a buyer. No,
it's
it's not.
pretty wild, isn't it? Really. Are you going to be doing anything like a sort of longer? Are you working towards like a longer set or anything like that?
Yeah. So with that, I mean, when I discovered that, I sort of went, "That's interesting," but and then I sort of slept on it for a bit, and then went, "Actually, this is amazing. This is scratching over it, especially. It's like feels.
Yeah.
I don't know. Somehow, I don't know. It's great. I love it. It's amazing. It's not quite knowing what's going on, and what's going to happen that really fascinates me. And that's I've always been, sort of strive for sort of perfection and stuff, which is impossible in all aspects of life.
Yeah.
And this is really forcing me down the sort of let things happen. What will happen? How do you react to this? And I love it. I absolutely love it. And I'm very obsessed with it, to be honest. And I am trying to, well, not trying. I have put a set together. I've got to, because I'm playing at the Scratch Barbecue in a couple of weeks. I'm doing something with this 4 track. I've
Right.
never, ever, ever done it live, ever.
Okay.
I have no idea how it's going to sound live. I mean, I'm really. Your guess is as good as mine. This is going to be a real.
Which because that's August Bank Holiday, isn't it? Are you
Yeah,
there both days, or which day are you doing the set?
Saturday. I'm doing the Saturday.
What
So
time?
that is, I can tell you, it's not this Saturday. It's
It's
next
2
Saturday.
weeks' time, is it? Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
So
I was talking to Cut Class again about that. I think he's coming down on the Sunday.
see,
I I might be able to make that. I don't know. It might be a push. I'd like to, but we'll see.
Yeah, yeah.
Life might get in the way.
These things happen.
Sadly. Right. I was meant to ask you this question before because I forgot, because I ask all my guests, and it may be a bit late, but then you may be able to come up with a couple of tunes. On the first episode of the show, we had a question from Mark Lancaster basically saying, what 45s lift your spirits? And normally I give my guests the question in advance so they've got time. Not
Nice.
necessarily 45s, but is there, well, ideally 3, but don't worry if you can't come up with 3. Is there 1, 2, or 3 tracks, doesn't have to be a 45, that particularly lifts your spirits if you're feeling down?
Absolutely bizarrely, considering the story, if you know it, Sid Barrett, Octopus.
Okay.
Sid Barrett, Octopus. Which is, as far as uplifting songs go, it's he was a troubled individual.
Yeah.
But I love it, and it always makes me go, yeah, this is wicked. I put this on. This is cool. Although Natalie, at the end, sort of towards the end of it, there's a tiny little bit that sounds like, no disrespect, okay, sounds like a Rizzle Kicks track, a little loop.
Right. Okay.
There's a tiny little bit, and she always goes, "Oh, look, it's Rizzle Kicks," and which does my head in.
Does that ruin it for you?
No, it doesn't ruin it. She's just brilliant at winding me up in the best possible way. But yeah, I don't know. That's a little story. What else? Loads of stuff. It's generally, 60s stuff. Actually, Grassroots, a band called the Grassroots, Live for Today. That's a wicked track. Really, really cool. Interestingly, if you know Creed from The Office, Creed Bratton.
Yeah.
He was in the Grassroots. He sings it.
Okay.
There's a bit on it where he says 1, 2, 3, 4 on that track, and that's him, which is pretty bugged out. What else? Oh man, I don't know. So much. Just a lot of jazz stuff. These days, sort of spiritual stuff. But it just depends on your mood. Like sometimes you come in and you want to listen to the most, whacked out free jazz stuff, and some days you can't tolerate that. I'm just speaking personally. It just depends what sort of mood you're in. But music is helpful and healing always for me. It's great.
Yeah, definitely, and we've talked about it a lot on this on the show in terms of us as adults having music. And it being very therapeutic. And one of the reasons we have the charity that we're sort of linked to, Jesse's Fund, is because they deal with music therapy for children who are in hospices, special needs, or have difficulty communicating. And again, it's amazing the power of music. And because we can appreciate as adults how it's helped us, it's good to be able to give back and say, it's going to help hopefully the next generation and children and other people less sort of fortunate than us. But yeah, music is amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. It brings people together, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to do a set for the Scratch Barbecue. Can you see that becoming maybe like another release, maybe like an album further down, or a longer set?
Okay, so I have a lot of sort of backed up music in the time it's taken for that LP to not yet come out. I've got pretty much another album that does incorporate this new tape loop type stuff. And everything I do on top of that. So it does incorporate that, but it's also, it's an extension of that album. It's in fact, the very first track that I made for the second album is a continuation of the last track on that album, which was unintentional, but it worked.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Going from exploring consciousness, and then it goes into the same sort of theme, but almost as an answer. That was an accident, but a very, very happy accident. So I'm quite chuffed for that.
It's amazing how music sometimes works like that, though, isn't it? That one idea sort of flows into another, and then without even realizing it on a subconscious level, they are linked. And obviously, it's only later when you think about it that they're like,
absolutely.
That'd be great. It's been fantastic chatting to you. I'm just going to set the raid, and and we'll go and see Chris Wheatley, who's down in Bournemouth, who's playing on the raid train that I was on earlier on. But it's been fantastic. You know,
Yeah,
it
it's been an
may well be
absolute pleasure. Thank you.
there's lots of things you said in there that and I always listen back to the shows, and I'm sure there's things I'll be like, oh, I wish I asked that question. I wish I'd found out a bit more about that. So I'm sure over a beer maybe in Brighton one day soon, or even on another show.
Yeah,
we
sorry,
could,
I'm not.
yeah.
I was just,
No,
sometimes
no,
you.
no. Same here. I mean, I'm having a beer, but I mean, literally a beer. You know, I'm in Brighton quite regularly, so maybe we can meet up for a beer and have a chat
Yeah,
and
for
chat
sure.
your ideas and
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much. If people want to listen back, they can listen to it back on Mixcloud. I'll send you some links and also watch it back on YouTube. And I'm sure some people will be inspired by what you're doing and look forward to the album when it comes out. Hopefully,
Super
end of this
kind.
month, beginning of next month, something like that. You would
Yeah,
think at the
something
moment.
like that. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you follow me on Instagram, or even if you don't,
Yeah.
someone will tell
Yeah,
you.
we had the link in the chat. If anyone missed it, it's instagram.com/rivalself. And yeah, check it out. Lots of really cool stuff. And obviously the videos, some of which I've played, are on YouTube, which they can check out on your
Yeah,
channel.
I try to sort of archive all these. They're not tracks at all. These things, they're just
Yeah.
sort of experiments and sketches and ideas and whatnot. So I try to record them and dump them on YouTube, so that mainly for me, so I've always got access to them and I remember things, and. But they're there if you want to check them out.
Definitely. Fantastic. Thank you so much. If you hang on there for a minute, we'll have a quick chat after the show. But
Really appreciate it.
thanks everyone for tuning in, and catch you on the next show.
Thanks very much. Thank you.